Hello, hello, Lagos. Hello, Nigeria. It is such a big pleasure to be in the driving seat of the safety train once again. This beautiful Tuesday afternoon, Taiwo says it's raining, it's wet. I'm not complaining because this is weather for two, Taiwo. I caught you there. And my name is Fayo Williams, and I remain your safety Amazon. We will be discussing a couple of safety tips as we go along. And today, the topic is the power of prevention, investing in early warning and protection systems, particularly as they pertain to the care and protection of children. And I am not alone. I have a man that is looking really dapper in the studio today. He is a lawyer, and you know how they come out looking like $1 million. This gentleman is a renowned human rights activist and principal partner of the Tropical Legal Consult. He's dedicated to protecting and promoting justice and human rights through legal advocacy and community engagement. With me, I have a former president of the Students' Union of Adekunle Ajasi University, Akungba Akoko in Ondo State. And this is none other than Barrister Adegbola Odunyemi. Please, Lagos, join me in welcoming him. Can you say hello to my listeners?
All right. Good afternoon, listener everywhere, all around the globe.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for gracing the safety train set this beautiful afternoon. And the topic is a real one. In fact, from the last advert, you could catch admonition going out to drivers, going across the pedestrian crossings, not being patient enough to allow children and other vulnerable population to use it. So we are on the right track. And I'm going to start off by asking you, what exactly are early warning systems? And how do they work when we talk about the protection of children?
Very well. Good afternoon once again, Fayo.
Oh, yeah. Welcome.
Well, we're talking about early warning signs. This refers to indicators or signals.
Indicators.
Signals that suggest the potential problem. Yeah.
Okay, so indicators or signals. Now, let's just go back a little. In very recent times, we had this young girl who got a JAMB result. She felt it was below what she should get, and the next thing, she took her own life. And unfortunately, the entire, the JAMB exercise was repeated. She could have had another chance, but she kind of lost hope before hope came. So what are the indicators that a parent, for instance, need to watch out for in such a situation?
Very well. I believe strongly that prayer was what exactly led her to committing suicide. Yeah, when there are excessive prayer on a child, she is bound to, think irrationally. That is why they are regarded as children, because of the fact that they don't have the ability to process their thoughts the way the adults will process theirs. That is why they are regarded as children. And it's just so unfortunate that at the end of the day she died and nobody is responsible. Nobody is held responsible.
Nobody is held responsible
at all.
That is scary. Scary.
The JAMB professor, the director general or whatever, just came out to tender an apology that it was this particular life that has been lost. There must be punishment for such unforgivable errors from the part of JAMB. But as a child, she must have been exhibiting those traits.
Exactly. These indicators, the symptoms, the signs are really the issues I want you to draw out.
Very well.
Okay.
She must have been exhibiting such
Traits of instability. Can you describe?
Very well, it's not something that
because we need to help a parent right now. Yeah.
Very well. It's not something that she will just wake up one day and think of committing suicide. Something of such must have occurred in time past that the parent decided not to take
cognizance.
It may be minor, it may be minor issues between siblings at home, which she will take out of context. And threaten the parent that I'm going to do this if this happened. One day I'm going to kill myself if you people keep treating me like this. All of that must have been happening, which the parent feels is something that should just
cannot happen.
Very well. And all these early symptoms are indications that this child has actually been talking to people who are either encouraging her in the negatives. That if my parent beats me at home, if I'm not comfortable with it, I can leave the house. If I'm not comfortable, I can kill myself. Peers must have been discussing such a thing together.
With her, her friends, her close-knit friends.
Very well. Which the parents are not paying keen attention to. And that's the reason she just decided to just take her own life.
All right. Now, let's look at proven examples of early warning systems that have saved the lives of children. Can you give us some practical examples, maybe drawing up on incidents in recent history, early warning systems that have been put in place and that have helped to save children?
Yeah, at some point in time, in the northern part of the country, when the issue of banditry was ravaging all the schools.
Yeah, that's right.
The government, in their own knowledge, think, what can we do? Every blessed day, this kidnapper keeps coming and taking away children in their droves. They don't kidnap adults, they go to school, take about 270.
It was so
in
sad.
In Chibok, in all
remember.
Of that. The governors felt like the best thing we can do in these guys is for us to prevent this evil occurrence by shutting down the schools temporarily, which saves them enough stress and unnecessary negative publicity.
But that can't go on forever because we all know how important education is. So what else would you recall was put in place?
Even in this our own Lagos, in the eras of Babatunde Fashola stroke
some previous administration.
Very well. I could remember vividly when the government was moving around schools. If your schools are not in a very good environment, if all the necessary apparatus you have to put in place are not being put in place, the government will shut down the school with immediate effect. That it endangers the life.
A preventive measure to shut down the school.
Very well. There's a particular building that was in distress. And students were under that same building learning. I could remember the government came there and shut it down and drive everybody out. These children's lives have been in. There's a particular one at Jopemunde. The school was under this filling station. They're selling fuel here. You kept children up here. What if there's any emergency? If there's a fire,
how do they evacuate?
Very well. And the government came, shut down that same school. So these are preventive measures.
So the government has been up and doing in these cases that you mentioned.
Very well.
And I would like to say that today I was called by the Lagos State Emergency Service number. And they were doing a survey because on the 1st of June, I noticed a trailer that had jackknifed along the Ogudu Bridge.
Okay.
And I called in to report that there was no warning sign, no sea caution, nothing. And you only need to have a set of young people, speeding in a sports car, and, we could have a very fatal accident. So when I called in, they promised to deploy LASMA. And today, 2 days later, they were, calling me back to find out was it responded to? Was the call picked quickly? Was I asked the right questions? Was I assisted? I was so impressed. And honestly, we need to keep challenging, our government so that other people need to be encouraged that if there's a problem, they can call 767. I tried 112, didn't quite go through, but then I tried 767, and I was able to report that fateful night on Sunday that this trailer issue, is on the way. So just before we take a traffic update, I would like to give a birthday shout out to my sweet and bubbly cousin, Mrs. Eniola Olubi Nee Johnson, the one we used to call Bumbo when she was young, but she's not Bumbo anymore. She's now a grown lady. So Eniola, I hope you had a lovely birthday from cousins. Okay, you know what I mean. All right, so we would have a traffic update right now.
All right, you're still tuned to Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. The program you're listening to is Safety Train with Fayo Williams. There was an impediment earlier around Ogudu Alakpere. It is off the road now. So if you are caught up in that busy movement, I can see the busy movement here, tailing backward Olokbo Meji end. It's moving steadily, but the impediment is off the road. Know that. And of course, you still have the field expansion joint on Ifako Bridge to contend with. That also must be contributing to what you're experiencing, because I can confirm to you that ahead of you, inward, the Lakbere is free.
And it's been a very exciting conversation on Safety Train this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I have with me Barrister Adegbola Odunyemi, and we have been discussing the power of prevention, investing in early warning and protection systems, particularly for children. We also highlighted the need for you to call 767 anytime you recognize a threat, a danger to life and property. Just pick the phone and dial that number. You will be directed to the right emergency service provider, and the situation will be under control. So this is one of the ways you can ensure good prevention. But if you would like to join this conversation this beautiful Tuesday, you can dial 0809 9120777. In the alternative, you can dial 091 5387 7127. We are still discussing early warning systems and protection of children. So I have another question for you. We've just been talking about schools and communities and government interventions and how, certain situations have been, prevented. Put under control. But what about the communities themselves? How can they build local protection systems for the children? And let me just, remind you of another incident we had on the news of this young girl who was going to the farm with her father and was kidnapped and was buried alive.
Wow.
But it was her cries, faint cries, that enabled people trace where she was, and she was rescued. 2 other people had been in that gaol, if I can put it that way, and did not survive it. But she was rescued. So children, they go from place to place, to school, to farm, to market. How can communities begin to put some local protection systems in place for these children?
Thank you. Unfortunately, we live in a society where everybody wants to leave everything to the government. The communities are not doing enough in this. Even in most cases, when issues like these are, drawn up, the community tends to,
kill
the whole stories and everything, and start telling those involved not to allow the government to hear about it. So the community needs to be sensitized on why
they need to
speak up and escalate most of this issue to the covers of the government, so that issue can be, promptly addressed and everything nipped in the bud before it's degenerating
to this level.
Very well.
Now, let's look at technology, because that's the new kid on the block. If we give a child a phone, are we supposed to put a tracker? What else can we do? how can we leverage technology to ensure the safety and protection of children? What are your thoughts on this?
On this one, we have categories of, children. We have
age range,
very well, man, ranging from the
very young
to toddler to
yes, that's right,
preschoolers and all of that.
Exactly.
There are some age that you must monitor their activities
with 6 sets of eyes.
Close monitoring. Then there are some age that you give some leverage. Because the child between even in our laws in Nigeria here, we have diverse definition of child. As far as our law on the child right is telling us 18 years. We have another law telling us 12 years. We have another one telling us 7 years. Yeah, the criminal code is telling us the age of a child that is not criminally responsible. Any age, any child that is above 7.
Above 7.
Yes. So if you are between,
you mean below 7?
Below 7. If you are between 1 and 7 years,
you are not liable.
But once you are above 7, under the criminal code, you are. Under the penal code is saying 12. That if you are below 12, you are safe. Once you are above 12, you are criminally liable. Yeah, we have the children and young persons that applies to the eastern part of the country. That one is saying 14 years.
But there's one that was domesticated in Lagos State.
That should be the Child Rights Act.
Yes, that's right.
That is the principal act which all of us supposed to be following.
Yes, and we should know it
very well.
Child's Rights Act. Okay,
yes,
we should know it.
Puts the age of a child that is not that a child is between 1 and 18.
That's the one I know.
1 and 18. So
I'm so surprised about this 7 and 14. I find it really strange.
Yes, we have them. Even the Child Rights Act as of today has not been domesticated in some states in the north.
Yeah, but in Lagos State it has.
When we're talking about a child that is between the age of 1 to 7 cannot be given any outer of freedom whatsoever.
And if you don't mind, I will recall a personal incident on Obafemi Awolowo Way. When you are on Obafemi Awolowo Way inward Ikeja bus stop, you get to that Kudirat Abiola junction, you have like 4 lanes. And I had this set of children aged between like 2 and 5 holding each other. They were on the median. They had gotten to the median and they were about to step onto that lane. I saw them. I just stopped. I held out my hand, made everybody in traffic stop. Because what was it? Go, don't go. And they were busy trying to make up their minds on that median. I am so proud of Lagosians. No single person, was on their horn. Everybody knew that this was a very delicate
potential danger.
Situation, and eventually I encouraged them. I said, just pass, go across, and then eventually they all ran laughing. And my concern is to parents right now, because another person that saved the situation was the LASMA man in the cubicle. He now came out and said, madam, what's happening? You stop traffic. I said, yes, I had to stop traffic because of these 5 or 6 of them in a band. So Ileya is coming. Ejo, ẹ má jẹ́ kí àwọn ọmọ yín lọ sí ojú títì. Ọmọ tí ò bá tí pé ọdún méje kò tí tó jùlẹ̀. That is what Barrister Adegbola is telling us. Please help us to, what they say in the local towns, loud it. Tell them that such children should not be left alone.
Of 1 and 7. They need total care. You can't leave them for any reason whatsoever. Because as at that age, they cannot make decisions on their own. They can't even process anything. If, as you were saying, ma, assuming you didn't stop, if one of them move,
others will just follow without looking.
They won't even look at it.
So that was the fear that day. And I'm so grateful that we were able to contain the situation. So kudos to Lagosians. Whenever you find situations like this, please be patient. Let's remember the children are our future and we have to do our best for them. So I think I'll just squeeze in one last question about parents and caregivers. How can they recognize early signs of abuse or aggression? You have children who could have been abused by, sometimes they say, a family member. The abuser in many cases is someone known to the child.
Very well.
So how do parents recognize the signs? Let's start with that. And what should a parent do? Because most of the parents say, Ronnie, just keep quiet. How would you say that thing of that brother Lagbaja or something? But these children are trying to cry out for help. How can a parent recognize the signs and also assist to overcome that challenge?
Yes, thank you, Fayo. You see, on the issue of recognizing those symptoms, the symptoms are rife. As a parent, once you know the behavioral pattern of your child,
once it changes,
you don't need anybody to tell you that something is happening to this child. You immediately detect that what exactly is happening. If the child can talk, once you bring the child close and pat her at the back, you will be surprised that the child would be letting out those information unhindered.
Pat him or her, because another thing that Taiwo and I discussed not too long ago is the way we leave the boy child. That man up, can't you fight? Maybe you two, you should hit back if they hit you. But we cannot afford to leave the boy child out of this. So both genders need to be protected, particularly under 7. Under 7. All right. Okay, let's take our last traffic update.
Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. Okay, the roads are still looking quite appreciable in most parts of Lagos, but I can tell you, for those of you considering the third mainland bridge, you have built up already from Car Wash End inward Ifako to connect Ogudu, but I can confirm to you that beyond Ogudu there, inward Alakpere, it is free. You just need to keep it within the speed limit. Very simple. Yes, you have the field expansion joint on Ifako Bridge, and earlier there was an impediment that has been taken off the road. Aside that area, Kudrat Abiola Way is looking very good. I can confirm to you, Idimonguru on Lagos Abeokuta Expressway is also looking good at this time. Bagada Shoki, you really have nothing to worry about if you're coming from that end, heading towards Lagos Ibadan Expressway. The backlog is just somewhere around Bagada, okay, after the bridge. Yes, heading inward Kawosh, and so you still have it very good coming in from Newcastle all the way down to Anthony, okay.
Thank you very much, Taiwo. And we are on the home stretch of the safety train. I would like to take you to task, Barrister Adegbola Odunyemi. What policy reforms are needed to prioritize prevention over reaction, starting from this age of liability that is like different in 3 different penal code, Child Rights Act? What are the policy reforms we need? Shouldn't there be consistency? That is the first part of my question.
Thank you, Fayo. There must be, in fact, we need to harmonize our laws to ensure that we have only one single definition.
Exactly.
If you say a child, we know that a child is somebody between the age of A and B. If the same thing that is applicable in the South should be applicable in the North. There should be no discrepancy.
No discrimination.
Whatsoever. Till tomorrow, a child of 8 years can be given out in marriage in the North.
That's a difficult area to go into now.
Very well.
So, but honestly and truly, policy reforms are needed so that we can prioritize this prevention over reaction. So, we are good at reacting. First, they will put their hand on their head. The Yami did not say you should be so lax. Okay? So, how do we ensure that people are not just reacting all the time instead of thinking of what can make the situation better? Where should it start from?
Now we have laws that governs every of our activities and conduct.
Wow.
There are some places as a driver, you are not supposed to even run more than 20.
Oh, she was talking about speed limit right now.
There are some areas you can speed as high as you want. So all those things, once they are not properly followed, those in charge should ensure that whoever finds culpable are brought to book. By the time you put 1, 2, 3 persons,
make them scapegoats.
Others will conform.
Okay, but I have a last question for you, because we always need to think of inclusion. So, how can we ensure that early warning systems are inclusive, especially for children who may be living with disability or may be in a conflict zone? You know, right now we have IDP camps, we have children in conflict zones. How do we make this prevention, these early warning signs and signals, how do we make it more inclusive?
Yes, as to making it all inclusive, like the child's welfares and
child's welfare must be considered.
The welfare of a child is just so paramount.
Exactly.
Even in divorce cases, once you are in court, the first thing the court considers is the welfare of
the
child.
children. Okay.
They don't care where the parent is, even if you like, you break your head,
displaying.
the welfare of this child
is the
so paramount
concern. Okay,
us.
that's very,
so
very important.
We should, once the welfare of the child is properly taken care of, with the issue of all these all inclusiveness and everything will take care of itself
naturally. Right. Thank you so much, Barrister Adegbola Odunyemi. It has been such a big pleasure having you on Safety Train this evening. This program. Thank you. The program was proudly supported by Rely Supply Limited, makers of first aid boxes and providers of training. For brand promotion on radio or to access our services, all you have to do is to call 0818 1313156. I'll take that again. 0818 1313156. The conversation continues at Fayo Williams across social media handles. You can find me until I come your way again next Tuesday. It is Vaya con Dios, which means go with God.